I did it again. Every time I have one of these lives, it seems like I set it up. On my main channel, guys, and I couldn't figure out how to get into it with my mobile. So I hope I get people showing up here and they're not distracted by the other one. If you guys do show up, if you guys do see this, give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can see me. And that we are streaming. Live chat. Okay guys, just gonna go for it tonight. Give me a thumbs up if you're here, if you can see me, if you're in the room. Probably gonna have to text my dad and see if he can see me. Okay, all right, good. People are popping in. Guys, drop me a comment with where you're from tonight. Make sure that you're in here. I'm gonna spend about an hour. Oh good, there are people here. Jesse, Patriot, Roy, Paul. All right guys, thumbs up if you can see me. And we're streaming well. I'm sorry about this. I had a live stream scheduled on my main feed and then I couldn't figure out how to get into it from my phone. It was glitching and wouldn't let me. But tonight, we're just gonna be spending about an hour in here and I'm going to be answering 20 sheep questions. I took these questions through Instagram, guys, and I'm going to be answering them here based on my experience from my farm through this live stream. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the live. Okay, lots of people in here, guys. Thank you. Tammy, Chris, Kirby, Luke, John, Road Trip Greg, John Moore, Danny, Crawford Family Farm. Guys, I'm so excited that you're all in here. Joshua Shetler, Andy Mullen, Michael and Stacy. Michael, Stacy, Dave. All right, guys, thanks so much. Tell me where you're joining me from tonight. I am, hey Mariah, I'm so glad you're in here. Goat Daddy, Neolog, Dave. All right, guys, going to introduce a children's product I have for this year and answer 20 sheep questions that I collected from Instagram. Quick intro yourself, guys. Where are you at as far as what you're farming and where you're at in this particular journey? I am here in Northeast Texas, live streaming from about an hour and a half east of Dallas. And I have been, well, this will technically be our 7th year with sheep on property and my 4th year full-time committed to managing them. So that's where I'm at. Before I was in sheep farming, I was full-time in marketing and business development. We hit lockdown and I realized there was some serious problems with respect to our food supply chain. And really, I realized that there was a big need for a localized food systems. As a matter of national security, we were just a week or two away from serious issues with respect to food supply and the centrality of it. So in 2020, I kind of jumped in creating a food supply chain for myself. I realized I had to do something, if not for the whole world. I had to jump in and figure out how to start growing food for myself, and that's what I did. And 4 years later, I am full-time in agriculture. I was able to use a lot of what I knew from business to diversify really heavily in agriculture in order to go full-time in it. Jamette, thank you guys for being here. Eric, Janine, Dave, answering 20 sheep questions tonight and introducing you to my new summer project. Bill in Vidor, Texas, Oklahoma. Besides my dog, says Jesse, I am the only other animal with plans to change that soon. All right, guys. A lot of you guys are here more recently from the Amos Miller stuff that I was doing. I had a couple million views from that particular series. I thought this was the geese, and the geese like to attack me. But guys, if you are here from the Amos Miller story, then just know that he's okay. I've had a lot of people follow up, and I'm probably going to do one more follow-up video on that. He has regained his ability to sell to 49 of 50 states. Ironically, he cannot sell within his own state of Pennsylvania until his lawsuit is all cleared up. But he's able to sell in all other 49 states, which was 90% of his business. He did a lot of out-of-state business through his e-commerce shop, so. All right, guys. New product of the month is the Shepherdess Summer Camp Kits, guys. I do not know about you, but I have been absolutely sickened by the way that certain media outlets have been exploiting children and children's entertainment with respect to shoving things down the hearts and minds of young children that are just absolutely unacceptable for even adults to be ingesting. So that was really the core and the heart of my project, which is the Shepherdess Summer Camp Kit. I'm going to run through that really quickly, guys. It's available right now at shepherdess.com. But when you order a Shepherdess Summer Camp Kit for a child, ideal age range for this product being 3 to 12 years old, you're going to receive a kit, a physical kit in the mail. And you are going to receive in that kit 3 hard copy books, which have been vetted by myself. And these are some of the best, most classic children's books you can find. You'll receive 1, 2, and 3 hard copy books for your child. Along with those books, you are going to receive 3 activities and access to a 6-video platform. These are child-safe videos where you can put your child in front of them and not have to worry about ads popping up. I'm going to lead them in 3 very specific activities on that platform, and it is going to be wholesome, clean, educational opportunity for your child. Available now at shepherdess.com, guys. I'm going to put the link down in the description, but just go to shepherdess.com. It's going to be on the homepage. And now I'm going to jump right into your 20 sheep questions. I really hope that goose back there, give me a thumbs up if you can see that goose back there, but he is absolutely insane, and he will probably come and try to bite my head off at some point in time during this live stream. I'm actually scared. All right. Paul LaRue is in Mountain View Micro Farm in Virginia. Justin Ridlin said howdy. Dustin says it's getting dry out west. It's starting to dry up here finally. Very, very wet. Very, very wet springtime. Nate Wright says hello from Australia. Dave says good to hear that Amos Miller is doing well. Tammy says I've got all my seeds in organic soil but fixing to move. Haven't been able to plant anything yet, so the plan is to set up growing room and do the best I can through the year, so we'll see how it goes. Way to go, Tammy. Joshua says, I started in 2020. I can't believe how far I've gotten since then. Yeah, that's the encouraging part, is that if you are in the beginning phases of being a farmer or just have this idea that you want to get out and start farming, there are so many resources right now to make that possible. And the education that is out there, and a lot of it for free, will really put you on the fast track. So it's a perfect time for beginners to start. Number 1, because there's so much information and opportunity out there. But number 2, because it's actually really necessary right now for a lot of beginners to get in and start producing some sort of food for themselves. You don't have to produce all of your own food. But if you've got an acre, if you've got 2 acres, if you've got half of an acre, try to plant a seed. Try to get a garden going. Try to raise some chickens. Just do something. Do something, guys. All right, I'm gonna dress this up just a little bit. All right, 20 sheep questions, guys, and you can leave your questions here if you have any. This is based on my experience from my farm, and if you have sheep and you have also had experience with what I'm getting ready to outline in these 20 questions, feel free to drop in the comments your experience. All right, so somebody asks here, what is your recommendation for dealing with CL? CL is Cassius lymphadenitis, and that is a disease in sheep that is passed from sheep to its offspring through the colostrum. So once you've got it in your flock, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to get rid of it. There are some vaccines for it, I know, in Canada, some in the US, and the efficacy of them is a little bit sketchy. So in short, for Cassius lymphadenitis, if it was my flock, I would just cull it out. Now, I do have a story connected to Cassius lymphadenitis, and I brought back 2 sheep very early on in my sheep farming journey, and right after they came back to the farm, one of them developed a cyst on its jaw. I was positive it was CL, but went ahead and took it to the vet for testing. Tested it 2 different times, and both times it came back negative. So that cyst on the jaw was not necessarily indicative of a true CL infection. It was just something else that caused that. So there are a lot of different reasons as to why your sheep may develop a cyst. Have it tested, but if it tests positive, I would get rid of it if it was in my flock. Number 2 question, asked here, what is the best social media platform you have used to market your farm business? So when I market my farm, my goal is to build into my newsletter list. My goal is not to build a huge social media following or any number of followers on a specific platform. My goal is to build newsletter subscribers into my newsletter list. You can search Shepherdess newsletter, and I believe I have a video on this and exactly why. But if I was to nail down one social media platform that has been the best for growing my email newsletter list, it will have to be YouTube. YouTube's been the biggest for converting subscribers into newsletter subscribers. There's really a lot of potential on all platforms. It's just a matter of committing to any one. If you're going to make a business and use social media to do it, just commit to a platform, give it a very specific amount of time, and go with it. For me personally, on YouTube, I knew I was going to be very deliberate with YouTube and use it as a way to build my newsletter list. And so I committed to 50 videos. I said, I'm not going to quit until I make 50 videos surrounding the topic of sheep and sheep farming. And then about video number 50, I started to gain traction. So whatever you choose, stick with it and commit to it. All right, guys. Got another question here. It says, what should be my priority before bringing sheep back to the farm? I'm going to plug my book here, The Basics of Raising Sheep on Pasture. The first chapter is 9 things your sheep farm needs, but I'm going to give the top 3, and that is fence, defense, and a shelter or enclosure of some type. Based on our experience, those were the 3 things that we really needed to get off the ground. Fencing being something better than a cattle fence, than a 5-strand barbed wire cattle fence. And defense being something that will keep the predators out or away. Personally, we don't have a livestock guardian dog. I've just got a big pet dog and a really tight woven wire fence, and that does it for me. And then a shelter and enclosure, you're going to need that for working them, sorting them out, deworming. You're going to need something to keep them all together while you do that work for them. So fence, defense, and... yeah, Patriot Roy says the goose is making himself known. Yeah, he is. All right, somebody asks here, tips on finding wethers to start with. And if you guys don't know what a wether is, give me a thumbs up if you actually do know what a wether is, but I'll just go ahead and explain it here for people who are new. A wether is a castrated male sheep, and that's something that will be used and grown out exclusively for meat. And this person's asking how I would go about finding a wethers to start with. And I personally would go to Facebook or Craigslist and shop in the months of either February or July. Those are when there's a big surplus on the market of wethers because they've just been either weaned off of fall lambing or weaned off of spring lambing. And you should be able to find a superabundance through Facebook or Craigslist. Now, if you do have a local sheep sale barn, I'm very, very careful about recommending sale barns, but if you have a local sheep sale barn and you also have a really good cattle friend, somebody that's got a lot of good experience and knows what to look for when they go into those auctions and sale houses, and they're willing to help you go in and get a group of wethers from your local sale, that is also an option. But Facebook and Craigslist are good options there. Jupiter Mojo says, is Gallagher fencing better than premier netting for semi-permanent paddocks? All right, Jupiter, I'd say if it's a semi-permanent paddock, as in it's going to be something they're going to be in for 30 days or more, I would do the electric netting. That's going to keep them in a lot better than that Gallagher polywire, because once they run out of grass on the inside of that wire and they start to see the grass is greener on the other side, they're going to really start pressing it. So that netting is going to keep them in a little bit better. All right. Orthodox Farm Chad says, how many rams do you keep for breeding? Currently just 2. They can breed. A good ram can breed up to 40 in a season, no problem. And my flock is still not over 80 yet. All right. Somebody says, why sheep? I've done pigs, chickens, horses, but always heard the worst about sheep. Number one is sheep are super low input as far as feed goes. They can go 100% off of grass so long as you've got enough of it in front of them. When it comes to pigs or chickens, you've got to provide almost 100% of their feed. And the grass and the forage is just a value added. So it's going to be really expensive to feed a pig or a chicken in relation to the sheep. The horses, I don't really like horse meat, and my goal in farming is food production, so that's why I never went for horses. I do not make any bones about it. Sheep are just a little bit more of a difficult animal, probably not as difficult as goats. They're just not as easy as cows. They're not mini cows. So that's kind of what my channel is devoted to in respect to the sheep education that I give, is providing a lot of the answers we didn't have when we went into sheep, thinking they were mini cows. So I make no bones about it. They are a little bit more difficult, but their advantages, especially on small acreage, really outweigh the extra management that they require for me. All right, how to resuscitate a lamb delivered breech. I'd be interested if anybody has any resuscitation stories. And by the way, guys, give this video a thumbs up if you're still in the room here. And share your resuscitation stories in the comment if you have any. I personally did mouth to mouth on a lamb, not once but twice this past year, and I still like subconsciously wipe my mouth off whenever I do that. But it came out breech. It really just wasn't taking its first couple of breaths. I did not have one of those little pumps that you can buy. You can buy a resuscitator to have as part of your lambing kit, which may be a good idea to do, but if all else fails, CPR does work for lambs. So I gave it some mouth to mouth, and I did some chest percussions, I think is the word for it, and they both lived. So I know a lot of times when a lamb comes out breech, it's pretty far gone because it's been without oxygen for a while, but in those particular cases they had not been without oxygen for a while. They had not been without oxygen for too long, just long enough to kind of make them lethargic and not want to take their first breaths. So. All right, question number 7. I think this is 7 of 20 sheep questions here. What do you think about terminal crosses? What do you think about terminal crosses? Leave your opinions in the comments, guys, if you have experience with terminal crosses. I'm going to explain just a little bit what a terminal cross is. So a terminal cross is a ram of a different or improved breed brought in and crossed on a flock of ewes that is of another breed. So an example of a terminal cross and the advantage it might lend in the hair sheep arena would be having a flock of St. Croix or Katahdin ewes and then bringing in a Dorper ram to increase the carcass size of their lambs for one generation. And it's called a terminal cross because the intention with all of their offspring is to take all of the offspring to market or terminate all of the offspring and slaughter them as meat. And that's why it's called a terminal cross, because none of the offspring really remains on your farm. You can continue to keep your low maintenance hair flock of Katahdin or St. Croix, and then you just have to deal with the Dorper, which might be a little bit more of a high maintenance breed in some people's opinion, to create that improvement for one generation. What is my experience with terminal crosses? I have no experience with terminal crosses. I'm super pleased with my Dorpers, and I have no desire really to cross them. I will be doing a cross as a matter of a parallel side-by-side research project this coming year. But my lambs, I'm super happy with their carcass. There's nothing at this point in time that I could cross them with to improve it, and I don't want to and have not. All right, number 8 question is, what cuts do you sell most of as far as lamb? And to be honest, I sell a lot, or actually all of my lamb in recent years has been sold on the hoof as either breeding stock or just as feeder lambs. So they'll buy the whole lamb and they'll take it all. So breeding stock, and that's kind of the advantage also that keeping a pure breed allows for me. Gives me a little bit more marketability in my my final product. John 14:15 says, hello from Dixie. Sunset looks beautiful. Doing family time, but wish we could join. Oh, I'm so grateful that you just at least popped in to say hi. Mark says, great work with Congressman Massey. Thank you, Mark. I'm so grateful his team gave me their time. Sunny Hill Flower Farm, hello. Got a couple of other questions here, guys, I'm going to get to in the comment section. Nate Wright says, do you separate the rams from the flock or do you run them the whole year? Nate, I've done both. And I have horror stories from one and a huge success story from both. So last year I decided I'm going to see what nature intends for my flock, and I'm going to leave my ram in all year long. And what happened there, I did leave him in for about a full calendar year. I had lambs born in late April, May, some were born on into June, and the late born lambs got parasites super bad. And the late born ewes struggled with parasites super bad. And what also happened was he stayed in so long that he began to breed some of my younger ewes, and as a result, ewes that were too young bred in that first year. So the year-round breeding thing, it may work for some, and leave a comment if the leaving your ram in all year round works for you, but for me it does not. This year, I tightened up my breeding window, and it has been the very best thing I ever chose to return to. It was something we did up until that 1-year experiment I gave. But I tightened up my breeding window in that I put my ram in beginning August 29th and ending a sharp stop on October 20th. I had no lambs born later than March 10th, and it's been fantastic. Their growth rate's been amazing. The tightness of that lambing group allowed me to manage a lot better, and my ewes and my lambs are sailing through even a very, very wet spring and summer with very minimal drenches. So I will not be returning to the year-round breeding. I'm going to keep it really tight. Go Fly Fishing says, what's been your best income stream from sheep this year? Sale barns, meat direct to consumer, or live animal sales from your own flock? And have you seen an increase in your sales since the cattle market mess? All right, so I sell all of my sheep direct through shepherdess.com. Best income in that arena has just been selling the live animals through my website at a premium on the hoof. It's extremely unconventional, but I established that, and I intentionally established that particular stream from the beginning, even before the cattle market mess. Even when sheep were going really, really good price-wise at the sale barn, I said I'm not going to rely on a middleman, whether it be a meat packer or a sale barn. I want to go direct to consumer with my product. And so that's been very, very advantageous because I have not seen much or any of a fluctuation in my pricing, the pricing that I've been able to get for my sheep, because everybody's buying direct. With respect to the cattle market mess, right now, cattle prices, as far as beef cattle, are through the roof. This is the top of another cattle cycle that we've got going on. I think somebody, if you guys know that your cattle prices in your area, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Somebody was reporting that steers were going for about $3 a pound up where they were at. And that's very good compared to what it has been over the past couple of years. And as a result, I believe the commodity market for sheep has gone down. So when you have a peak in a cattle cycle, you generally have a dip in the sheep cycle, and that's just kind of what's happening. So go fly fishing, that's the answer to your question. Because I've built out that direct to consumer market stream, I have not seen a huge fluctuation in my prices. All right, question number 9 from my list. Guys, you can keep leaving them in the comment section. I will get to them here as I finish out my list of 20 right here. Question number 9 is, what age do you wean your lambs at? And typically it's about 14 to 16 weeks or 45 to 50 pounds. So 14 to 16 weeks being the standard, and if I have to early wean them, I like to make sure that they're at least 45 to 50 pounds. An instance for early weaning would be the mom is maybe getting really skinny and she just needs to have those lambs off of her. And if that's the case, I'll just make sure they're at 45 or 50 pounds and then wean them off. That happened last winter. I had a ewe lamb. She was lambing on some really poor quality pasture and she was getting really skinny. She needed that lamb to come off of her. and she needed to be able to have that stress removed from her. And that lamb was 45 pounds, and I was able to wean it off before it turned 10 weeks. So that was my case for early weaning. I just had to make sure it was at that really good weight. All right, Dave says, you're a huge inspiration for sheep farming and food freedom. Thank you so much for all you do. Well, thank you, Dave. Praise the Lord for that. And I'm really grateful for that kind comment. All right, Michael asks a really good question. Michael Stacy here asks a really good question. How much hay consumption per ewe do you go through in a week over winter? So, I have the exact figures on a spreadsheet. If you want to follow up with me at shepherdess@shepherdess.com, I can get you the precise numbers. But for me, it was something along the lines of 7 square bales for a ewe over the course of winter, and I think I was feeding for like 5 to 7 weeks. So I hope I'm thinking right, but if not, follow up with me, shepherdess@shepherdess.com, and I'll pull directly from that spreadsheet. I pull from it now, but I'm live streaming from my phone, and the spreadsheet's on my phone, so. But as far as feed consumption goes, guys, I do cover it a lot in the basics of raising sheep on pasture, which is available at shepherdess.com. Covers all of the basics. A ewe that is dry, which means she's not lactating, will eat about 3 to 5% of her body weight in feed every day. So over winter, when we're talking about hay, and you have a 150-pound ewe, let's do some quick math here. She's going to eat between 5 and 7 pounds of hay per day. So I was way off on that 1 bale per week. She'll probably eat 1 bale in 3 days. So 2 bales. 2 50-pound. You know what? I'm not doing really good on my math, but let's just stick with that 3 to 5%, and that's what she'll eat in her body weight in hay over winter. If somebody can give me their mathematic brain right now, tell me how many 50-pound square bales that would be in a week. 5% of a 150-pound ewe. First one to the draw gets a really special thanks from me. All right. Poor and bruised of spirit, says Shalom. I purchased a 20-acre farm. It was a round crop, but I'm growing pasture and wanting to get sheep. I do not have a hard fence around the property. Will be able to keep them contained. Will I be able to keep them contained if I use Premier One fence and rotate them? Yeah, let me show you a picture of what I would recommend and do recommend to people who have no perimeter fence to start with. And it is exactly that. Premier One netting. A lot of times people will say, I just want to see if sheep are a good fit for me, and I just want to get maybe 5 sheep and set them up and just give it a test run before going all in on my infrastructure, because the infrastructure is really expensive. Let me see if I can find it here. So basically, what you want to look at is getting this, is getting that netting. You want to use a lot more of that netting if you don't have any hard perimeter fencing. And that's going to be what my recommendation is for that. But yeah, give it a shot. Use that Premier electric netting and just give it a shot for a season, and you'll be able to tell really fast as to whether you actually like sheep and you want to continue to save towards greater level of infrastructure. And but don't let it stop you from just getting started small there. Jupiter Mojo asks, assume your August to October ram breeding is based on seasonal temperatures in your zone. What temperatures are you thinking to target for lambing time? South Florida is the coolest for us in February. So Jupiter, this is a little bit more on the techie side, but I don't necessarily go for temperature as much as I like to align it with peak lactation and fresh spring pasture converging. So I'll just tell you how it worked for me this year. My best lambs were born in February. Some of my best lambs this year were born in about mid-February. It was really cold, and I did have a couple freeze, but as long as they got up on their feet and got a drink, they did great. What happened was that by the first week of March, we had some incredible spring pasture. My ewes were in their 3rd week of lactation, which week number 4 is peak lactation. So the peak lactation and the peak pasture converged. A lot of times I hear, time your lambing, time the date of your first lamb to come when the pasture is at its best. But for me personally, I found that it's best to time it actually a little bit earlier than that and have the ewe at peak lactation, which is at 4 weeks post lambing, at the same time that pasture is the best. So think of your pasture at its best state, move backwards 2 weeks, and that's when you kind of want to have, that's when I'm going to have lambs from now on. All my lambs are going to be born probably mid-February from now on. And I've tried it a lot of different ways. If you guys have questions on that, I'd be glad to answer them. But okay, guys, thank you for filling in on my math here. Michael Stacy says 150-pound bale per ewe per week. Got it. And Jesse confirms that 52 pounds per week is what's necessary at that 5% feed. And thank you guys so very much. So yeah, you'll need about 1 bale per week, 1 square bale. 150-pound square bale per week per ewe if she's dry, meaning she's not lactating. Thanks, guys. All right, moving through your questions here. Continue leaving them in the comment section, guys. I love to have these live streams because I really love connecting with each of you. Joshua Shetler says his recommendation is to get a perimeter fence, even if it's sheep and goat 16-foot panels. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. That's the goals for sure. That's what we put in. But if you don't have that yet and you just want to kind of play around with maybe 3 or 5 sheep, try the netting. All right, so question number 10 of 20 sheep questions. I hope my sunshine holds out, but I'll try to make through all of these. Do you use any natural dewormer? Have you had any success with things like pumpkin seeds, apple cider vinegar, garlic, etc. as a treatment for deworming? And the answer is no. Not as a treatment. Not as a treatment. I would advise those things as preventative measures to keep your sheep in really good condition. And I apologize. Let me know if the wind is making this difficult to hear. But no. I have not had any success with any of those as a treatment for a sheep that is severely infected. And again, I'm going to go to the book here and get a really good picture for you guys of examples of a sheep that is severely infected with the barber's poleworm. All right. This is the basics of raising sheep on pasture, by the way, available at shepherdess.com, guys. It has everything, the basics, completely outlined in a photo educational format. So you're going to get basically all the questions I'm answering tonight are more or less answered in this video, in this book. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you a picture here. This is a FAMACHA score. It's what's commonly known as the FAMACHA score, but this basically gauges anemia in the sheep, which tells you how heavy the parasite load is. So this is a healthy sheep. This is a sheep that's pretty significantly infected. This is actually an animal that just died because it's been so severely infected. So if you're talking about using pumpkin seeds, apple cider vinegar, garlic, diatomaceous earth for a sheep that is severely infected like this, that's a really bad idea, and it'll end up here pretty soon. It'll end up probably dead. If you're dealing with a sheep that's really healthy, it's still got really good color, and it's a healthy sheep, you want to do all the things like apple cider vinegar, molasses, diatomaceous earth. You want to do all the stuff then to keep it in really good health so that you don't have to use the drenches, and so that the sheep does not end up like this. But once your sheep does end up like this, it's a very sick sheep. It needs a treatment and not a preventative, guys. And I say that as a result of just having a lot of losses ourselves using and trying to implement things like garlic, diatomaceous earth, apple cider vinegar, pumpkin seeds, you name it, on very sick sheep. We lost a lot. So we say it from experience and not as a result of just not being willing to try. When your sheep is sick, give it medicine. All right. Any advice on how to market pasture-raised lamb to a business? Two things. Number one is have a really good sales pitch, meaning you have brochures, you have photos, and you have an explanation of exactly what it is, how it was raised, and why it's better than somebody else's. That pitch may also include things like samples, things you could take directly to the manager and just, whether it's a couple of lamb chops or whatever, just say, hey, here's my brochure and here's a couple of lamb chops, and I'd like to supply you with all of the lamb that you can sell in your establishment. And that brings me to number two, and that is volume. That's probably the most important part when you're going to approach a retail establishment or a grocery store or a restaurant. You need to be able to have consistent volume. And I say that because in my very first year of sheep farming, I was approached by, it was a co-op, I believe it was, and they needed a set number of lambs from me every year, or I was basically not part of their program anymore. So you have to be able to be consistent with your supply as much as efficient at your marketing. And those are going to be the most important things when you are approaching in marketing pasture-raised lamb to somebody who's going to resell it for you. All right. All right, yep. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, James, for pitching in on the hay estimation. Abby U says she has a question. I have a neighbor who has a Dorper ram and is willing to let my 2 Dorper ewes mate with his ram. How long should I let them be with the ram? Sheep breed in 17-day cycles, so I'd say a minimum of 17 days. I always give my ewes at least 34 days with the ram so that they can have 2 chances to take. So anywhere between 17 to 34 if the person's willing to let you keep them for 34 days, do that. Oh, Anthony Leak is here. Thanks for being here. I never feel like it's a stream until Anthony is here, so glad he's finally made it. All right, Wobbly Boost says, I want to thank you for your coverage of Amos Miller case and direct private sales of food, which should never be subject to legislation. Amen. Here in Oz, I've had to meet in empty car parks for raw dairy. Yeah, it's kind of the way it is here. All right. Noah says, I've learned so much from your channel. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you so much, Noah, for that encouraging comment. Love your name, by the way. That's my brother's name. Pete the Squatchy says, hi, we are terrible at marketing. Pete, subscribe to my newsletter. I've got a lot of free stuff that I send out to people about marketing. And guys, I'm going to put the link to my newsletter and all of that inside of the description of this stream once I'm done here. But you can go to shepherdess.com and look under the tab. It says free training. Free training. I've got a really good marketing tool there. It's going to be 3 tips to launching a money-making email newsletter. It's one of my most valuable free resources. I should probably be charging money for it, but it's free. If you go to shepherdess.com right now, you can download that for free right now, and that's going to give you the best kickstart for marketing. Marcus, better late than never. Thanks for joining. Guys, if you are new to the room, please tell us where you are joining us from. McKeel is in Oklahoma. He says, hi, everyone. Yes, Anthony Leak says so true about the advice given with respect to marketing the local meat or the meat to local retail establishments. Got that advice from you, as well as a couple people who contacted me in the early days. I realized I had to have volume if I was going to satisfy them. And then on 30 acres, if I'm just being really transparent with you, on 30 acres, I am way better going direct to consumer with my product than looking for a middleman to sell it for me, because I'm really limited on the volume I can put out on 30 acres. So I really need all of the margins. All right, Crichton Greer says, how often do you cycle out your rams? Good question. Crichton, I don't do it super often. Probably every 2 generations. So breed father to daughter and father to granddaughter with no problems and no hesitation, and that's what I do. By the 3rd generation, I like to switch him out. However, I was at a show last May. It was at the Sunny Hill Flower Farm, and right next to a Texas AgriLife Extension agent, he had run Dorpers for 18 years, and he said, oh yeah, sometimes we breed a ram to his offspring for 5 and 6 generations with no trouble. Now, that's at 5 and 6 generations. He said we needed to do some blood tests for things like scrapie and a certain spider, some type of genetic strain. But he said, yeah, he didn't even hesitate. He said, yeah, 5 and 6 generations, we'll breed them down. So that made me feel a lot better about confidence in my 2 generations. And then, so I do at least father to daughter and father to granddaughter. Since I met that guy, I was not even feeling bad about a 3rd generation. Jupiter Mojo asks, total novice question, which diseases or issues will result in culling are no-go for harvesting? Oh, okay. So which diseases would result in the meat being unsafe for human consumption? I don't think I can speak on this because I actually don't know of any diseases that would filter into the meat. Guys, speak in the comments if you do know of diseases that make it into the meat. But I will not say definitively one way or another whether or not there is a disease that will make it into the meat. You probably need to go and do some of your own research on on that. Anthony says he would have been here sooner, but his wife wiped out all of his YouTube following. Sorry about that. Barnyard Journey says, why'd you select your current breed of sheep? It was initially a breed that was chosen for me. If you guys watch the very first video on this channel, you will know that I undertook this flock for better or for worse. I didn't necessarily make the choice. I made the commitment. And it was Dorper at that time. It was a breed that my parents had chose, and one thing that my parents will say is that they're not farmers, but they are connoisseurs of quality, and they did do a really good job of picking a breed of sheep that was highly marketable. So they did really good job on that, and it wasn't my choice, so I can't take credit for it. Why did I stick with it? Because it's one of the most marketable sheep in the United States right now. It's the Angus of the sheep world. It is a breed that not every successful hair flock will be 100% Dorper, but every successful hair flock in the United States will have some Dorper influence in it. So that creates a lot of marketability for my Rams' breeding stock. And what I've done over the past 4 years as I've assumed full ownership and full management is I've just worked to improve and increase the quality of those Dorper genetics. I've sourced some of the best genetics in all of the United States to put into my flock here. And so yeah, they're a meat sheep with unsurpassed carcass yield as far as hair sheep go. And nobody really wants to do the wool sheep much anymore. This is Dorper, by the way, if you guys are unfamiliar. Because wool is more of a liability cost-wise than an asset. All right. All right, guys, you asking some really good questions in here, guys, so I want to make sure that I answer your questions here on the live stream. Appreciate you guys being here so much. Give me a thumbs up if you're still here. Hit the thumbs up on this video if you're still here. Xavier says, beautiful pasture and trees to the right. How is the sun so bright? It's nighttime here in the Caribbean. Yep, we're in Texas, so I'm losing daylight, but we're still got a little bit of it. I'm going to try to get through your questions and try to get through the 20 that I committed to on this. John Doe says, how to run a profitable small farm, or Joe Doe says that. For me personally, it's taken a lot of diversity. You've got to diversify. You've got to look for every single opportunity to make money on whatever you choose to sell. And then you've got to make money in a lot of different ways. Go to shepherdess.com. I want you to go to the free training tab, and I want you to download 3 tips to building a profitable newsletter list. My email newsletter list for my farm has been the best investment I've ever made in my farm, because through it I have direct access to tens of thousands of customers every single month. And in that free resource, guys, I teach you how to build and launch the exact same kind of thing for yourself. So go download that resource. It's easy for beginners to understand. Shepherdess.com under free training. Just scroll down a little bit on that page. Gerard says, hi from Trinidad, West Indies. We love your podcasts. Very interesting. Thank you so much for being here. Naki Eads says, Naki here from Kentucky. How big are the sheep supposed to be to butcher and not have mutton for my own consumption? And what is wrong with eating mutton anyways? Very, very good question. So a lamb is technically anything under 12 months. I think there are certain countries that'll even say under 14 months. But lamb in the US is technically understood as anything less than 12 months. What's the problem with eating mutton anyways? Nothing at all. If you search on YouTube California Shepherdess, that's my video, you will see Dylan Boken there, and he has a huge market for what would be labeled as mutton. They're just lambs, or sheep rather, that are slaughtered at 14 or 16 months, and he says the flavor is a lot richer and better than a lamb. So just a matter of marketing and consumer education. And if you are just going to butcher for your own consumption, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with waiting until 14 to 16 months. So all right, David White says, I'm retired for 2 years. Where can I get federal or state grants? David, I don't have any counsel on federal or state grants. Poor and Bruised of Spirit says, question, can sheep and goats be raised together in a herd? Yes, they can. I tried to do that a little bit. I raised sheep and goats together. They got along just fine, but the goats are a lot worse at testing fence, and they will jump out of the fence. So if you search, again, on YouTube, shepherdess sheep versus goats, you're going to get one of my videos pop up. You can watch my comparison there. Jupiter says, it's crazy here in South Florida. There are breeding rams going for $650 locally. That's a Dorper breeding ram. Yes. Yeah, it's a really... Barnyard Journey says, will you continue to breed the Dorper breed for the long term? Dorper is my breed of choice. By the way, the book is available at shepherdess.com, The Basics of Raising Sheep on Pasture. Yes, I will stick with the Dorper for the foreseeable future, unless a better breed comes out. But I am so grateful that I am actually raising one of the best and most desirable breeds in the country right now. I'm not going to say it's a one-size-fits-all. Sometimes I will counsel people in super rainy areas, like somebody emailed me from Tennessee or Mississippi, etc. And I'll say, you can cross a Dorper over a Katahdin to get a little bit better parasite resistance. That's something that I tell people to do a lot. But a lot of times people say they have to have the Dorper in there to get a good meat yield on their carcass. So yes, long way of saying yes, I am sticking with the Dorper for foreseeable future. Yes, Pete the Squatchy said he had a ram that he butchered out. It was St. Croix, and it tasted like beef, raised on all grass. That's what ours tastes like, just really high quality beef. And I wonder if it's a hair breed. I believe it's a hair breed difference over a wool breed, because a lot of times the wool will leave that lanolin flavor that people will often peg as gross in lamb, and the hair just doesn't have it. Alright guys, gonna go try to find my sheet. You guys are asking some really good questions. I want to prioritize yours since you're here live in the chat. But I'm also gonna try and get through these here. Question number 12 is, what things would you cull your ewes for? I have a big three. My big three are maternal qualities, meaning she has to be a good mom, a nurturing mom, and she has to love her babies when they come out. Number 2 is she has to have good udders so that she can feed those babies that she loves when they come out. And then number 3, they have to be really parasite resistant. Those are my big 3. And I believe as I go on with my flock, I'm going to be able to fine tune it. You know, once I get to where I want to be with certain traits, I can go be a little bit more picky. Like, okay, if this one, I don't know, but those are my top 3. Those are my top 3. I know people get kind of intense with the kinds of traits that they cull for. I think I've heard people of culling for sheep that jump over the fence, and if I was to cull for sheep that jumped over the fence, I probably wouldn't have any sheep left. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. But those are my big 3: maternal qualities, udder quality, and parasite resistance. right. Somebody asks here, if I want to raise a sheep for meat, is it okay to raise the lamb alone? The answer is sheep are flock animals. If you raise a sheep alone, it's going to be really lonely, probably depressed. It's just as easy to get two and just as easy to care for two. So I would recommend getting two sheep instead of just one. Getting two sheep instead of just one. Somebody asked, have you ever found buried cans of money while rotational grazing? I think that was a joke. But my answer is maybe. And maybe that's the real reason I'm a full-time farmer right now. I'm just kidding. No, I wish, but I have never found cans of money while rotational grazing my sheep. Let me know if you guys have. All right, Marcus asks, is there a cutoff on how old a sheep should be for slaughter? Marcus, we just kind of talked about this. A lamb is technically 12 months or under, but a lot of people, for personal consumption, don't mind growing them into 14, 16, 18 months. But if you're marketing lamb, you need to have it ready to slaughter by ideally 9 to 12 months. And that's the cutoff for marketing. Xavier Cruz, you said anyone. I'm not sure if you asked a question and I missed it. Drop the question again. Sean asks, have you thought of expanding from meat to cheese? Sean, I have not as far as marketing. Never say never, but I have not personally approached that idea. It's a lot of work. John Moore asks, number of lambs per mom, and the goal is about 1.5. Dorpers are a little bit less prolific than something like a Katahdin, so they hover about 1.5. It's all kind of about management, though. They have to be in really good shape at breeding. And then Justin Ridlin says, good a farm till money runs out. Justin, I think that's a good idea. But you probably should not wait that long. You probably shouldn't wait until all the money runs out. All right. Guys, we're almost at the top of our hour here. If you're still watching, thank you so much. Give this video a thumbs up. I'm going to finish out the last couple of questions here. The basics of raising sheep on pasture is available at shepherdess.com. It's got everything in it that I'm talking about tonight. Your orders support my business and my work and all the free videos I'm able to provide for you so much. So order the book at shepherdess.com. Also take advantage of the free resources I've mentioned at shepherdess.com, as well as the child summer camp kit that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Gonna get to the last 6 questions, guys, on my list here, and then get to your questions in live chat if you've got any more. Question is, how much time do you spend marketing your farm per week? So I mentioned earlier I am full-time in farming right now, but that's a very diversified business model. I farm, I sell farm resources, I make farm videos, so it's extremely diversified. If I was just to isolate it to the time necessary to market my sheep for a premium, I would be at probably about 1 to 2 hours per day. But because I am so fully diversified, I am currently 8, 10 plus hours a day in marketing. So I think probably 8 would be a little bit extreme. I'd say probably 6. So it's a little bit under full time as far as the marketing goes. And then I spend the rest of the time working on my farm. But 1 to 2 hours if I was just selling sheep only. Chainsaw says, what age do you separate the lamb rams from the flock? Probably around 5 months. 5 months they get a little bit active. Thanks, Shane. Shane says, you're living what I want to do. Walker Custom says, I've got 7 acres, mostly grass. I'm going to get a few sheep in the spring of 2025 and see how it goes, working on fencing first. Way to go. Can't go wrong by starting small. It's going to be a really good experience for you if it's been like me. Ross asks, have you ever read the book A Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23 by Philip Keller? I have not read it fully, but somebody was so kind as to send it to me last year. So thank you to that person. Go Fly Fishing says, what grass species are most desirable to your sheep in your pasture? That's a good question. They pretty much eat everything that's green. They'll pretty much eat everything that's green. Most desirable would be the higher protein varieties. So I'll just say for springtime, they love the clovers, they love the ryegrass, and here in the summertime, we've got a ton of what is called a Dallas grass growing out there. D-A-L-L-I-S, G-R-A-S-S. And then there's a grass, it's called crabgrass. It's really hard to get it to establish here, but they'll eat that up like crazy. But they really will go for the more nutritious things first. They'll eat weeds. I mean, that's when people ask me that question about sheep, I always stop and say, it's hard to identify a favorite when they literally eat everything. They eat everything and they love it and they get fat on it. That's the advantage of sheep. So they have their favorites, but they'll eat it all. All right. Cole Sanchez, nope, already answered that one. Cole Sanchez says, how do you separate a 5-month-old ram lamb from the paddock? I typically sell them. They're typically sold, so by the time they're 5 months old, they're ready to go off to their new farm, or by the time they're 5 months old, they're really close to being ready to butcher. So if it's an intact ram lamb, it's one that I've deemed is good enough to sell to another farm, and I'll typically take a pre-order on it, and it'll be ready to sell straight out of the pasture at 5 months. All right. This is another question. This is going to be the last question on my sheet of paper here, guys, and then I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any from the comments, and then I'm going to leave you for the night. But the last question here is bringing feeder lambs to raise this fall. I want them to be grass-fed. Any tips? The top two would be just make sure to have a good grazing rotation in place. Doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be crazy, to make sure to move them twice a week to avoid the parasite loads becoming out of control. And number two, offer them a lick tub, free choice, for those winter months, those fall and winter months. I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture here of what that lick tub is. I use a Hudson Livestock multi-species tub in late summer when the forage quality dips, and also in the winter time when the forage quality dips. But I'm going to take a little quick minute to show you guys what I'm referring to in the book here. Okay, yeah. All right, so if you're taking them home and you want them to grow on all grass, just make sure you offer them a lick tub free choice. And what that does is it basically it's kind of insurance against pasture that may not be very, very good quality. You've got amazing pasture, no questions about it. You probably be okay without having a lick tub, but that's just going to be a safety net, or insurance rather. Because if you're looking at a pasture that's something like this, which you can see it's burnt ryegrass, it's ragweed, you've got some cocklebur back there. It's just really low quality, and there's really not a lot of grass. It's just mostly weeds. Something like a lick tub is going to allow your sheep to stay in really good condition while still primarily using and enjoying all of that forage. So that's my advice, is lick tub and rotation. All right, guys, that is all that I have for you tonight. Appreciate you guys so much. A couple questions here that I'm going to get to before I leave. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button on this video, and also check out shepherdess.com for the free training. Look at the free training tab, and you guys are going to get a lot of really good resources there if you need some more help getting started with sheep. Joe Doe says, do you raise laying hens? If so, what does your housing setup look like? I wish my sister was here. She's the chicken lady, but I do have a photo of it here in my book, The Basics of Raising Sheep on Pasture. I'm going to get another plug-in for that. So go to shepherdess.com for this book. But I'll go ahead and show you the photo that I have of our setup. It is just the poultry netting with a Justin Rhodes chickshaw. And she has these really, I'm sharing all the secrets, but I hope you guys still go buy the book to support my work. But I'm sharing all the good stuff here. It is, I'm going to show you just a little sneak peek of that. If you want to see how those are made, those have saved her back as far as watering set up for her chickens. So the basics of raising sheep on pasture, and we run, she does also have the breeds that she raises in here. Chicken Lady's favorite breeds. Guys, you've got to go buy this book. I did put everything in it. But she raises Delawares, Buff Orpingtons, Barred Rocks, and hybrid Black Australorp Buff Orpington. She's also been doing a lot of heritage breeds. So, hope that helps you with that answer there. Dave says, how early do you decide to castrate? Dave, so that you know if it's good enough to leave intact or castrate. I typically will look at the maternal and paternal line. So if it's one of my best ewes and the lamb is born, then I pretty much know that I'm going to leave that one intact. But I try to castrate before 8 weeks. Before 8 weeks. Mango says, do Dorpers work in northern climates? Yes, I've seen Dorpers all over the country successfully run as far up as New York State, South Dakota, Oregon. Yep. Feeling a little sheepish right now, but you're the goat. Sorry, that was a bad joke. That was pretty funny. Alright. Paul says, is there any reason to not keep a few horses in the same pasture as sheep? I don't see any reason not to. We have a miniature pony that goes in the same pasture. He's just kind of mean, so when we have lambs, he will bully the lambs. He's left head wounds on some of my lambs before. That's just a temperament issue. Shane says, who knew crabgrass is good for livestock? Some people absolutely despise this stuff. I know. But it's super high protein. John 14:15. All right. Lots of good jokes from him. Watch the live stream for some good jokes. Appreciate you guys very, very much. Shepherdess.com. I'm going to leave a lot of links in the description if you're watching this in replay. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next live stream. Subscribe to my newsletter, all of that stuff. Now, I'm going to see. I can never end these very well.